Cheers, my friends, cheers. What I have here is the Bluetti AC200P power station. This is a 2000 watt-hour power station that I've been testing out for the last handful of months. Now, there's plenty of videos out there concerning this product. There's not many videos out there where the reviewer has really used the product. Most of the reviews, they open the box, they give you a review, tell you how great it is. I'm not like that. The Outdoor Gear review is not like that. I have been testing this product out. In fact, I just got back from a 4,000-mile road trip, 10 days, where I used this product. And of course, I've used it long before that. Now, to start off this review, there is something that I need to state. In one of those episodes, one of my cross-country adventure episodes, where I went out to New Mexico and Utah, I stated that I could not get this to charge on DC power, 12 volt. That turns out to be an issue with my truck. I did some fiddling around. My vehicle has 3 DC 12 volt ports, and only 2 of those are full 12 volt power. One, for some reason, is 6 volts, it's about half. At 6 volts, this will not charge. It's too low. At 12 volts, it will. So one port in my truck, it won't charge from. The other 2, it will. So I want to go ahead and just make that clear. It turns out it is not an issue with this power station. It is an issue with my truck. Okay, getting that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about this product. This runs $2,000. It weighs 60 pounds. It is a beast. This thing is heavy. 60 pounds? Yeah, you could work out with this. Considering the capability, the capacity of this power station, 60 pounds is reasonable. Now the question becomes, how are you going to use this product? If you are overlanding and it's going to be stationary, or you're going to be like in an off-grid situation where it's going to be stationary, that makes sense. If this is something that you need to move around frequently, you have to ask yourself, how easily can you personally move this? Maneuvering this inside of my truck, it's not that big of a deal, but if I was in a situation where I would have to bend over, maybe inside of a car and move it, that would be quite tough. So consider the use case for something of this size. The measurements of this power station is as follows. It is 16.5 inches tall, it is 15.2 inches wide, and it has a depth of 11 inches. This power station features a lithium iron phosphate battery, which can be recharged thousands and thousands of times. Now, that is important because not all battery technologies are the same. They're not created equal. With some technologies, they can be recharged maybe 800 times, 800 cycles before they begin losing capacity. With this here, you're looking at over 3,500 cycles before you begin losing some capacity. That's incredible. Anytime that you're looking at a power station, you have to consider how many cycles, how many recharges can be done. This unit features a 2-year warranty. It outputs 2,000 continuous watts with a surge up to 4,800 watts. And when it comes to the port selection, this really is the gold standard for power stations. It is unreal how many ports, how many different charging methods that this offers you. Talking about port selection here, you have 6 AC outputs, 100 to 120 volts, 2,000 watts. These are sine wave ports, 3-prong. You have 2 sections of USB 5 volt 3 amp ports, 2. You have power delivery up to 60 watts with this 1 USB-C port. Going over here, you have your DC output, 12 volt 10 amp cigarette lighter charger. Below that, you have 2 5.5 millimeter ports, 12 volt 3 amps. Moving over here, you have another DC output. This is for 25 amps. And this is for devices over 300 watts. You can use this port to directly wire into a fuse box if you want to. You have to have an additional cable that you have to get from Bluetti. You will have to purchase that separately. On top of the device, you have 2 wireless charging pads with an output of 15 watts each. You simply put down your phone on top and it charges just like that. In fact, why don't I go ahead and turn this on and show that to you. To turn on the device, push the on-off switch. I like the metal housing, I like the light on this. It feels very premium. So now the screen is all lit up. Now, in the sunlight, this can be hard to read, if not impossible. So you all can see the screen, I will move this inside of the truck, and that will give you a good idea of what it's like to maneuver this thing. So luckily, inside of the truck, I don't have to bend over too much. To show you all the wireless charging, you turn on the DC, hit the button, click on, take your device that supports it, and you lay it down. So you can see that it's charging and it's using 4 watts. My phone is almost charged, that's why it's so low. So that shows the output. Turn on AC, and now all of these ports are active. When you turn on the DC, all of these ports, including the wireless chargers, are activated. So you can see here, nothing is connected to the AC, so it's not drawing any power. Up above this is the AC charging power indicator. Over here you have the PV and DC car charging indicator. You have home page, settings, data, and faults. So you can see there you can change all sorts of settings. AC output voltage, AC output frequency, DC input source. That is an important one because you can go from PV to car, solar, or DC. Then you have the eco mode, which you can turn on and off. Going back, you can take a look at the data, product information, inverter charger information, including solar and DC, adapter charge, DC output, AC output. Let's go to DC. Output voltage, 3.4. Output power, 5 watts. Here's the fault history, and at this time, there are no issues. Looking at the unit once more, you have grab handles on each side. On one side, you have a fan port. On the other side, you have a fan port, in addition to your charging ports. This is the AC port right here, and you also have the solar port and DC port right here. On the bottom of the unit, you have rubber pads, and as you can see, this has been well used. Before going any further, let's talk about what you receive with this unit. You get the unit itself, a warranty card. There's also an instruction manual inside of this. You receive this bag. This includes the charger and different cables. There's the power brick, and this thing is a monster. It is a monster. This bad boy can pump out 411 watts of power. And yes, that means that this can charge very, very quickly. You have the power cord that plugs into the power brick. You have your 12 volt, 24 volt cigarette lighter cable, which plugs into the aviation cable. Additionally, you get an MC4 cable. And folks, that is what is included with this unit. Now let's go ahead and talk about the ways that you can charge this unit, because there's quite a bit to go over here. When it comes to charging, this is a very impressive device for many reasons. With the included power brick, you can charge the device fully in 4.5 hours. If you have 2 of these, you can charge it in 2 hours. That's right, you can use 2 power bricks to charge this device at the same time. On 12 volt DC power, you can charge this in roughly 14 hours. If you're using 24 volt power, you can charge this in 7. Being able to charge a power station of this size on 12 volt power is important, especially for overlanding. I know there's some people out there, I've seen this on other channels, where they said that charging something like this is ridiculous, it's nonsensical, and I completely disagree. Not everybody is going to spend a ton of money setting up solar panels on top of their vehicle and whatnot. So that is kind of a yuppie sort of opinion there. Being able to charge this off of your cigarette lighter is important for a lot of reasons. You're cruising across the country, in no time you can top off your power station because you're driving for numerous hours at a time. So being able to have that capability is important. Not all power stations will charge on 12 volt power, but this one does. In the past, I've reviewed other Blue Yeti products that could not be charged on 12 volt power, and it really limited their use. So luckily, that's not the case with this one. You can charge this with your cigarette lighter, and it does charge well. And it really can make a difference depending on how long and how far you're driving. The next method of charging this device is with solar. This will accept up to 700 watts of solar energy. In real world conditions, how long does it take to charge this device using solar? That really depends on so many different factors, it's impossible for me to give you an accurate estimate. I mean, it depends on location, time of year, clouds in the sky, temperature, and so on. There's just so many factors there. For myself here in the mountains of North Carolina, charging on solar is really, really difficult. I mean, it really is. Like every hour the weather changes. Very rarely do you have a just clear day. That's a rarity here. We get a lot of rain in the mountains, over 100 inches of rain per year, so having beautiful sunny days, it's just not that common really. Charging 12 volt, charging with the AC, that is how I go about primarily charging this device. Now of course, if you live out west, solar makes a lot more sense. Before moving on to my review, I should talk about the security systems, the protection systems built into this device. It features just about everything that you can imagine, from charging protections, low voltage, over voltage, the ports are regulated, and so much more. As far as security and protection goes, this features just about everything that you would want in a power station. Now, with that being said, let's go over to my review, and let's talk about my use cases for this power station. As I mentioned before, I've been using this for roughly, I think I'm moving on to 4 months now. And out of that 4 months, I've had no issues. I did have the issue talking about charging with the DC port, but that really was my truck. It wasn't this device. The port that I was using was pumping out roughly 6 volts. This would not charge, but I have other power stations that will charge from that lower voltage. So it's interesting that this requires the full 12 volt power or it simply will not charge. I've used this primarily for overlanding. I haven't had the situation at the house where I needed emergency power, but that doesn't mean that this isn't capable of offering emergency power, because it does. It can. 2000 watt hour, that's a ton of capacity. And with this inverter that surges up to 4800, you could run 99% of everything inside of your house with this. You can run a TV, air conditioner, coffee pot, CPAP machine, game systems. There really isn't much that you cannot run on this. You could run a vacuum cleaner if you want to. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. With this power station and the inverter, you really are hitting the point where there's no compromises anymore. You don't have to worry about certain devices, shutting it off and whatnot. You can run them. Now, you may not be able to run all of those devices, those high draw devices at one time, but you can definitely run them individually, and that's important. I've already mentioned that I just got back from a 4,000 mile road trip with this device, and this is what is so impressive about this. Every single night, every evening, we ran 2 LED strips from this device. We charged our phones, my wife charged her watch, we charged camera batteries. That was every single night for 10, actually I think the trip was 10 nights, but we were gone 1 night, and then we were out backpacking for that trip. So 9 nights we did that. I haven't charged this device since we got back, and it is at 50% power. 50% power. So for that entire trip of using this device every single night, every once in a while in the daytime, we use only roughly 50% of the power. And that is absolutely awesome. That shows you the capability. That shows you what you can do. Not scientifically, of course, but from a real world use case. Now, with that being said, let's just go ahead and start at the beginning when it comes to my pros for this device. The build quality is excellent. The fit and finish is excellent. I even like the colors of this thing. It's like a blue-gray finish with a light gray. It looks good. The grab handles are excellent. You need these grab handles, right? Those are very important when you're trying to muscle this thing around. The screen is good, but there is one caveat, and that is daylight, bright lights. In well-lit situations, you will have a hard time seeing that screen. Like right now, I could just barely see it. And it is cloudy. In full sun, you're not going to see anything on that screen, and that is a problem, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. When I read that this unit had a touchscreen, I was concerned because I figured that it would be slow and clunky. That's not the case. The screen is very responsive. It's very fast. You can turn on, if you can see it, DC on, perfect. AC on, data, go back, faults, go back, settings. I mean, you could do anything that you want to here very, very quickly. Turn that off, turn that off. So the touchscreen is very responsive. And also, it gives you quite a bit of information. It tells you how much power is being outputted. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't tell you how long until the battery is drained. With the ports, again, this is the gold standard. You have 6 AC ports, you have 4 USBs, you have the power delivery, the DC, and so on. You also have the wireless charging ports, which honestly I didn't think I would like, but I do. At nighttime, you hop in the back of the truck, you throw your phone down, charging, bam, just like that. And you don't have to use your front USB ports. You can save those for something else. For myself, that was batteries for the camera, for the drone, and whatnot. So for me, having these ports means more versatility up front for devices that don't feature wireless charging. There are plenty of power stations that are out on the market right now that are similar in size as this, that simply do not give you as many AC ports as this, or even USB ports. The next pro that I have for this device is the cell technology that's used with this battery. 3,500 cycles. That is incredible. Realistically, you can use this device for over a decade and not have any sort of issues. Moving on, the inverter is amazing, 4,800 watt surge. That's top notch. Because of this inverter, you can basically run anything that you want. Another pro for this is that this thing can be charged super fast. If you live out west where the sun is full and bright, you can charge this with solar, 700 watts max. I mean, you can charge this super fast. If you're in the east and you're relying on DC power, you have 12 volt, 24 volt, and you also have the ability to use 2 power bricks at the same time. The additional power brick, I want to say, is 130 bucks. For individuals traveling across the country in areas where it may not be sunny and you don't have solar, having 2 power bricks makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can stop for lunch, charge this thing up in no time. So now everyone, let's talk about the cons with this unit. We have to talk about the weight, we have to talk about the size. This is not small, this is not light. Can you lift 60 pounds? Are you going to have to move it frequently? Ask yourself those questions. In truth, the weight and the size really aren't cons, considering what this offers you, considering the capacity. But I throw that out there mainly for the fact that you really need to consider how you are going to use this. If you are going to be moving this thing around, yeah, you have to consider those factors. Next up, that screen. Again, in sunlight or even like today where it's just simply cloudy. In cloudy conditions, I can barely read it. In full sun, can't read it at all. With the screen here, I am concerned about this. To me, it feels like there needs to be an additional level of protection over the top of that screen, because if you mess up this screen, you're not going to be turning anything on. All the functionality is right here on this screen. There are no physical buttons. So you have to go to the screen to turn it on, you have to go to the screen to turn it off. That is a weakness for this unit. So if you're traveling, wherever you put this, make sure to protect that screen. Taking a small piece of like plexiglass or whatever and putting that over the top would be a good idea to protect the screen. The next con that I have is that these USB ports, the 5 volt 3 amps, these are not quick charging ports. Interesting to me that this device doesn't feature those quick charging ports, but it simply doesn't. You do have the power delivery port, and that's nice for like using charging a MacBook, a computer, and whatnot. The next con that I have is very minor. I personally do not like this bag. It's rather small. It doesn't really fit all of the components tightly. You still have a pretty big gap at the front, so things can fall out. I would much rather see like a neoprene case or something like that. Something a little nicer, something a little bit more secure. Another con that I have with this device is the power level indicator. While it's in percentage, that's awesome. At times it fluctuates greatly, and it really does depend on temperature. So at one point in time, this got down to roughly 39% while on my 10-day trip. But as you can see now, it went all the way up to 55% in the warmest part of the day. Because of fluctuations in temperature and what's reading on the screen, you may not always know truly and accurately how much power is left. And that is a con with this device. All in all, the pros for this device outweigh the cons. This has been an excellent performer with my testing, and the complaints that I have for it are very minor. Biggest thing that you have to keep in mind is the weight and also that screen. So can you move this thing around? Do you have to, right? And make sure to protect that screen, because if you mess this up, if you jack this up, this thing is a dead unit. Driving across the country with this bouncing around in the back of my truck, being exposed to dust and whatnot, I mean, it's had no issues. I've been very impressed with the output. I mean, Susie and I, every single night, would plug in our electric blanket, fire that up, get warm, and just let it turn off as we slept. And this has been an invaluable piece of equipment. If you have a need for power in an off-grid situation, this is an excellent option to consider. The technology is really good. The cell technology is really good. You can easily charge this with solar. Again, max input from solar is 700 watts. So this does offer you a lot for the money. When you compare this to building your own power systems, you're coming out ahead. You're going to save money by simply buying something like this, which is just plug and play. And that's important for myself. With my truck here, I work with this truck, I truck camp, I overland with it. I don't want to attach solar panels to the top of this truck. I don't want to have to drill holes and run wires and all that stuff here. It just doesn't make any sense. So for myself, for my needs, something like this works really well. In the end, I can easily recommend this product. For overland use, this makes sense. For emergency use at home, it makes sense. For RV use, it makes sense. For camping, off-grid, and so on, this makes sense. And everyone, that is my agenda-free review. I've shared with you all the pros and cons that I have for this device. Now, when I say agenda-free, that means this. I am giving you all my thoughts, my opinions, and that's it. I don't care if you go out and buy this. I get no kickbacks, no commissions, nothing like that. I share information with you all, and that is it. It's a real-world review. Again, there are so many channels out there reviewing stuff, power stations, I mean, anything you can think of, really. And they go to the mailbox, they grab the package, and oftentimes they open it on screen and they say it's a review, and they tell you how great it is by reading some numbers off of a piece of paper. They have no idea how those devices work. What you got here was a real world review. And folks, that pretty much wraps it up. Make sure to comment down below and share your thoughts. What do you all think about the AC200P power station? This really is an impressive power station. It offers a ton in terms of not only capacity, but capability. You have all the AC ports, the USB ports, the wireless charging ports. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Make sure to hit the thumbs up if this information has helped you. Hit the thumbs up for a channel that is truly agenda free. Everyone, take care, strength and honor. See ya.